In the 1970 clip of you on Tomorrow's World, the voiceover says, and here in this artist studio in central London, and we see this beautiful split level bachelor pad, your flat, where you're working, typing into computer paper tape. It's absolutely gorgeous, this flat. It's panelled, you've got all this lovely furniture. How did that come about on a writer's salary?
Well, it looks very good, I admit it. It was actually one of the studios in Hammersmith next to the Royal Ballet School. And though it looked very beautiful, it was the most dreadful place I've ever lived in my life. It had, it was an artist studio. The only heating was a little tiny Victorian stove. I would sit in the middle of it, next to the stove, with about 4 electric fires during the winter and about 4 jerseys on. And there was a noise going on outside. It was probably the worst place I've ever lived in.
Okay.
It used to cost. It looked beautiful. It used to cost £12 a week.
In the clip, in the Tomorrow's World clip, you are shown actually typing computer code directly onto paper tape. In order to then have it transferred to magnetic tape. Now, to actually be able to input the computer commands by hand rather than using a programmer to do that for you is a remarkable leap in technique.
I have to say that was all fake. No, it was not. It wasn't done like that. The film itself was designed. I suggested the basic idea. A guy called George Borokowski, who was an animator at the time, he was the designer and the animator, and he should take full credit for that. What it was actually was just a square, and a square revolving, and as it revolves it gets smaller and smaller, so it has this sort of diminishing square moving into the distance. And he did that on an optical printer. A computer drew the square, and that's all the computer did, and it drew it in various shapes and moving down. And then he put it through an optical printer several times and superimposed it so you had all the different colours on top. And that was done, I think, about 1968. And it became 3D. You could look at it through there, and it had this diminishing thing there. And it was experimental in one sense, I mean, of just doing very simple shapes. The real experimental part of it was, at that time, most of the people doing computer animation were programmers. I didn't know of any other people in the animation world who were doing any work with computers. And to that extent, the programmers were trying to solve it all with a computer, whereas the animators, when we started working there, were using it as just another tool. And they were saying, oh yeah, I can do technical stuff like that, you know, with the computer, which I can't draw. And initially my work with John Hallis was not to do experimental films at all, was to do he had a series of films on mathematics, like how the ellipse works and trigonometry, and I said to him, well, why don't we do these with a computer? I knew about computers because I had worked in America and worked on a film about the coming of new technology, which included computers. And I had seen the work of the Whitney brothers and various other people that they had been doing in different ways. And I was quite inspired by things like computerized choreography, stuff they'd use for teaching astronauts. And so those things, I could see them all together, that there was computer music was quite popular at the time. I mean, synthesizers and things were coming out. And there were a number of ideas, and people would talk, people in the business, people in the Computer Arts Society, and they were talking about it. Animators were constantly looking for new ideas because advertising was developing, and every studio was trying to sell their design or their technique to the advertising. The way it used to work in those days, somebody from an agency would come to a studio and say, we have a product, can you do an idea for us? That doesn't work, that stopped a long time ago, but that's how it would work. And what would happen is the producer would then phone up me and say, I've got an idea, phone up an illustrator, a designer, a typographer, whoever, and we would just come and sit down and talk about it, and then that would be it. And then we'd take it back to the agency, and then that would be how it worked.